Welcome back, Conversational Chaos fans. This is the Rage Monster here in the studio this morning with Jason, and we're back with another riveting edition of Conversational Chaos. We do have a little bit different show for you today. A few months ago, I put out a question to a few separate subreddits, specifically Australian subreddits, asking the question, what should Americans know or what should we learn about Australia? I've always been fascinated with Australia, and I thought it would be interesting. And we got quite an avalanche of responses. We're not going to go over everything that they talked about today, but we're definitely going to go over certain things that I thought were pretty important to talk about. Jason, have you geared up for the day?
I'm ready to go.
You seem like you're super excited.
Bright and early.
I'm actually
not Bert and Ernie.
I'm a little spun up this morning. I was very upset. I actually tore one of my belt loops.
On your pants?
On my pants. On my husky pants. We're not talking about pants again for 20 minutes. It's not going to happen.
No, but I listened to the previous episode, and there's so many more things that bothered me about that movie. We could have a whole nother show.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about The Quiet Place either. So anyone who missed the previous edition, you really need to go back and listen to it. It was quite good. I think it was one of our better episodes just in general flow. But we literally talked about pants from the Banana Republic for 20 minutes, and then we talked about The Quiet Place for about 45 minutes. It was almost an hour episode.
Still, I'm a little angry at myself. Didn't get a chance to go back and look up that you were incorrect about corn being saved in a silo for human consumption, but that's for another time.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, so before we get into the meat and potatoes of this particular episode, which is all things Australian, you have a sidebar you wanted to go through, right?
No, I'm just going to spring it on you.
You're going to spring it on me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's unfair.
I told you it'll tip off on a topic. When you bring up a topic, it'll...
Okay. I suppose I just have to live with that.
So do you want to dig into something, or do you want to go right into the Australian flag?
We need to put out some basics, okay? Some basic information just for our U.S. listeners about just the geography of Australia. Australia is roughly 3.3 million square miles of space.
What state is that equivalent to? Geography man.
See, this is why it's important, because you said which state is it equivalent to. It's roughly equivalent to the size of the United States. The size of the United States.
With Alaska?
No, without Alaska.
What about compared to Alaska?
No, it's CONUS. Alaska would be about a third the size of the country of Australia.
Oh.
But the U.S., like CONUS, so the continental
really
United States, is 3.8 million square miles. So in comparison, they're really not that much different. To fly from New York to L.A. is roughly 5.5 hours, give or take, right?
Okay.
Depending on which carrier and which route they take.
Wind.
Flying from Sydney to Perth is around 5 hours.
Oh.
So that's roughly across the country. And also, Australia is its own continent.
Yes.
It is
but it includes other countries.
When we were kids, Australia was like the last continent you learned, because the big ones, North and South America, obviously, because that's where we live, is North America. And then Europe, which was, where most of our ancestors come from. And then, Asia, which was gigantic.
Yeah, how did they manage that, to get the whole continent named after themselves?
Well, it's not. The whole continent isn't named after themselves. See, that's another misconception. Australia is a continent, but it includes countries like Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, which are islands.
That's what
nations,
I meant.
I guess.
Like they just sucked everybody else. It's like, we're just going to name. It's not strong enough for us to have our own country name. We're going to have the whole continent named after us. We're going to suck you in too.
One of the things that I was totally shocked by, and I don't know why I was so shocked by this, New Zealand. Obviously, it's a different country. It is way offshore, which I knew, but it's not considered part of the Australian continent. Like Greenland.
It's not?
No, it's not.
What?
Greenland.
Is this like a vote? Like you can just vote which continent you're on?
No. That's all like a tectonic thing. So it's
the continents.
Yes. It's like attached to a different plate and it's separated by a certain distance, whatever. I don't know. But like Greenland is part of North America, which Greenland should probably sort of be its own subcontinent.
It's off kind of in the middle though.
It's gigantic, right? New Zealand is not part of the Australian continent. So the population of Australia is roughly the same as the population of Canada. So it's about 38 million people live in Australia.
Is it like the fourth biggest country?
In land area?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know that. It's got to be maybe. It's definitely in the top 10, but I don't think it's that high.
Okay.
So Canada,
I guess because they don't have Alaska.
Russia is gigantic.
Right.
The United States is quite large because we have not only the continental part, but we have Alaska, which is like adds another third onto that. So basic stuff. And in comparison, the U.S. population is 327 million. So obviously a huge disparity there. But it's really because a vast majority of Australia is, I wouldn't say not inhabitable, but a majority of the country is desert. Once you get inland from the coast, I think most of the people live in the southeast part of the country. And just like the United States, Australia, and this is one thing that sort of bothered me when I put that question out for a lot of these Australians when they responded as though Americans know nothing about Australia. We got talking about a few things, which we'll touch on later, but a few things specifically mentioned how U.S. states are generally can be very different as far as their laws are concerned. We have the overarching laws of the federal government of the United States, but there's a separation between the federal government and the state government. State governments can kind of do their own thing as long as they're not violating the federal laws. So I kind of had made that comment, and then somebody jumped all over me. Oh, well, Australia, we have states too. Well, duh. Yeah, we know that. There probably aren't too many U.S. citizens that can name any Australian states.
Sydney a state?
Sydney is not a state.
Is Perth a state?
Perth is not a state. The states are...
I doubt most people can name cities in Australia other than Sydney.
There's a lot of people who wouldn't know what the capital of Australia is.
It's not Sydney?
It's not Sydney.
Is it Perth?
It's not Perth.
I'm one of those people too.
It's Canberra.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that.
Exactly. Most Americans wouldn't. They wouldn't know.
It's almost close to the great Thanksgiving food. It's good year-round. Anyways.
the cranberry sauce. Okay. So there's Western Australia, which is like a third the size of the entire country. It's huge. But that's where Perth is in Western Australia.
Wait. Is it the name of the state is Western Australia?
The name of the state is Western Australia.
Okay.
And then there is South Australia, which I think is like where Adelaide.
They're very unique names they've got here.
Then there's Queensland, which is
I've heard of that.
Which is I think is where Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, was from. So
I think most people know that because of the salad.
Oh, I guess that's true. As kids growing up in the United States, I mean, the crocodile hunter was a little after our time. We're a little bit older, but it was certainly something that I was familiar with.
Oh, I watched it all the time.
Exactly. I used to love watching Steve Irwin. That was like a great thing to watch when we were in college and you were mildly intoxicated. It was a really fun thing to watch. This crazy Australian guy grabbing crocodiles by the tail. What are you doing?
Or all the other deadly stuff.
I know. So there's Queensland, which is like northeastern Australia. Then you have Victoria, which is like southeastern Australia, and then New South Wales, which is where Sydney is. So those are like the states. Oh, Tasmania. I forgot Tasmania. Tasmania is its own state, which is really weird. I don't know. I knew this previous to looking into it, but Tasmania used to be called Van Diemen's Land, and they changed the name to Tasmania for whatever reason. I don't really know. But that's a separate state on its own, which I find really funny because it's so...
It's in kind of central, isn't it?
No. Tasmania looks like the shark tooth that hangs off. It's an island that hangs off like the south part of Australia.
Okay.
And it does. Every time I look at a map of Australia or a world map and you see Tasmania sticking down there, my immediate thought is that looks like a shark's tooth. And one of the things that I know that Americans are really familiar with is Australia, surfing, and shark attacks. It's just one of those things that a lot of Americans would like equate to, being in Australia is being attacked by a great white shark. I mean, so when I see it, that's what I see Tasmania as, is like a great white shark tooth.
Oh.
So those are like the states, but they have a bunch of like weird territories. Like they have like Capital Territory. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but where Canberra is its own little like territory within the state of New South Wales. And then the Northern Territory, which is like a sixth of the entire country, is a territory. It's not a state. So if you like take Australia, you cut the eastern third off, the western third off, and then there's the middle third.
Yes.
The bottom half of that is South Australia, and the northern half of that is the Northern Territory. So like Alice Springs, which is in the middle of nowhere, which is like where NASA has like a mission ground station and stuff. I think that's in the Northern Territory, or it's in the very northern end of Southern Australia. I don't really know.
You really love your geography.
I do really love my geography. I'm a geography person. Can't help it. So those are just some basics about Australia. Now, for those of our listeners who don't really know.
So back to, you were saying how Australians think Americans don't know enough about Australia.
Yeah, that's very true.
If an Australian came to the U.S. and they were experiencing what we know about Australia, if you asked a typical person, I would think that they would say crocodile hunter.
Absolutely.
Outback restaurant.
And Outback is not Australian.
Doesn't matter. I'm just saying what people would say.
I don't think they're growing bloomin' onions in Australia.
Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, God.
The Subaru Outback.
Yeah.
Because he drove that. And the Tasmanian Devil.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And none of those are appropriate. Once I saw what a real Tasmanian Devil was, and it was not at all like the Warner Brothers Tasmanian Devil.
What? It's a dog.
It doesn't spin around and growl and create this giant dust storm everywhere.
I would assume that
they're kind of cuddly looking, except they're ugly.
Wait a second. I'm thinking of the Tasmanian tiger, which looks like a dog. I don't think I know
Tasmanian
what the Tasmanian
tiger.
Devil looks like, which is an extinct animal now.
Was it recently extinct? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, not like within the last
Not
20
like a
years, but
saber-toothed
they
tiger.
have photos.
Okay. Oh, I do
video
remember that.
In a zoo.
Looks a little bit like a hyena or something.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
It has a long tail and it was stripy.
Yeah,
Looks kinda like
half
a-
stripy.
Yeah, and it had a really, really long mouth.
Yeah.
They could open up its mouth super far, which was really odd. Oh, yeah. It kind of looks like a badger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's small.
Yeah.
You could almost have one as a pet.
I don't know. I don't know. It looks pretty vicious.
No. It looks like a hamster. Big hamster. Although they do have this disease that they're investigating. That's only I think only Tasmanian devils get it. And it's a weird genetic disease, if I have it remembered right.
A weird genetic disease
Yeah.
that
I can't
only
remember enough
Tasmanian
about
devils can get.
Now, see, now you're going to make me look up and I'm going to have to get away from the microphone.
No, don't look it up. It's completely irrelevant. Tasmanian...
It's not completely irrelevant. I just forgot it until this morning. He started
Tasmanian devil facial tumor disease.
Yeah, so it's like wiping out their species, except there's a small group that's like immune to it, and it's cancerous. So the people are investigating like, why is this one group immune to this cancer? And hope to like apply it to save the rest of the Tasmanian devils, but also help humans fight cancer.
This is the same. You know, we've talked about this before, so we're not going to get really deep into it. But back in the time of like the Black Death,
yes,
there were pockets of population that were not affected at all. They could not catch the disease,
right?
And they've been able to genetically track that to people that are currently living that are immune to things like HIV.
Yeah, and
they don't really know why. There's a particular gene that's activated in their DNA that prevents them from being able to contract a particular viral diseases.
Oh, did you see the story about the lady who doesn't feel pain, but she heals very quickly?
No.
Oh, that's all there is.
That's really, really weird.
Like
if I shoot her, she's going to like get up and walk away, and I'm going to watch the hole kind of seal up.
Not that quick.
Oh.
No, it's kind of like she doesn't feel pain, so when she's cooking and she burns herself, she doesn't realize that the pan's hot until she sees like a blister on her hand. Or she gets a cut and doesn't realize she's cut until she's bleeding. But once she takes care of it, it heals faster than usual.
That seems like a detriment. It doesn't seem like... I mean, we feel pain for a reason. We have pain receptors to tell us, hey, you're damaging your body right now. You probably want to stop doing that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see that as a detriment. I mean, of course, you don't want to feel too much pain.
I wonder if all your clothes would always feel comfortable, though. Or just like non-existent.
Well, it doesn't mean she can't feel anything. It just means she doesn't feel pain.
But if your clothes are too tight, I mean, what if Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
feeling pressure and feeling pain are different.
Probably
things.
different.
Let's get back to Australia. Okay?
Sorry,
I don't want to talk about
I was
this
about to
anymore.
go off to another topic, but anyways, get us back on.
Okay, so back to Australia.
Back to Australia.
So there were several things that were identified in
Yes.
this long string of things. So things they suggested we talk about were Australian politics. We're not going to get really deep into Australian politics, but just their political system. The fact that Starbucks failed in Australia. Several people mentioned that one. Minimum wage. I had to look this one up. I have absolutely no idea, or I didn't until I started researching for this, what a musk stick lolly was. Do you have any idea what that is?
No, because as you said, each three of those words, three different things came into my head.
When
It's got to be a piece of candy.
Obviously, lolly.
Well, a lolly's also a truck.
That's a lorry.
Close enough.
Good God. So, I had to look up what a musk stick lolly was.
Well, it's not a lollipop then.
No, it's.
I just want to work through this for a second.
No, it's a stick. It's just like
it's like a sugar stick.
It's basically a sugar stick.
Is it like when you go to those like fall festival stores or like arts, you see them in like the crafty stores where it's like the candy stick.
Yes, but it's
Horehound is like a big flavor.
But it's
That's
not
fantastic.
as hard.
It's not as hard. Is it chewy?
It's chewy, apparently, like a Mentos, from what I've gathered. That's kind of like the consistency of it.
That's weird.
So you can like put it in your mouth. I guess it's kind of hard because some woman made the comment about how when they were kids they would put a musk stick in their mouth and they would kind of like suck it down into like a point, and then she said, "Well, then you could stab your mates." so
it's not like a red vine.
No,
it's
so apparently it's hard. It's hard enough to like fashion into a shank, I guess.
But softer than like a candy cane.
Yes, but softer than a candy cane.
Because we used to do that with candy canes too.
Yeah. So I guess a musk stick lolly is sort of like a candy cane.
What flavor
that's a little
is it?
softer.
Musk.
Exactly. When I was totally baffled by that. When I hear the word musk, I think of an ox or an animal's like gland. I don't think of something I would want to eat. And I'm thinking, okay, it's just a name they used for it. Apparently not. Apparently, it is animal musk, or it used to be. Now they use like a synthetic one that they actually make.
Right.
They're not using actual animal musk anymore, but that's what it is. It's animal musk flavored candy.
How would you get musk out of an animal?
You have to kill it.
You can't like squeeze it.
I guess not.
Like a skunk, you could squeeze it.
But it was like mule deer or something. There was some population of animal that was literally being like hunted to extinction just for the musk, so they could make these stupid candies.
What is the rest of their food like? If your dessert is musk?
I don't. That's one thing I didn't look into at all, and maybe we should put some time into it at some later episode. For Australian fans, the reason why, I probably should have mentioned this, the reason why we're doing an episode specifically about Australia is because we do get a fair amount of downloads from Australia. So this is kind of reaching out to our Australian fans saying, hey,
hope we don't alienate them
hope
today.
we don't alienate you, but we're trying to recognize that we do have fans down there, and thank you very much for downloading us down under. So if we say anything wrong or we're just being a little too American, please send us an email, let us know, because we would love to hear some feedback from you guys. But getting back into it, musk lollies, that was such a strange one. And then somebody wrote the word bogan.
What?
Somebody just wrote the word. Their comment was,
I hope this isn't a curse word.
Bogans. It's not a curse word.
I still can't hear
Bogans. You. And the first thing I was thinking of was
Bogans?
Yes, bogans.
I can't see your face behind the microphone.
BOGAN''S. Like one is a bogan, a group would be bogans. And it's funny
makes sense.
because I was thinking, when I saw that word, I'm thinking, bogan, what could that possibly be? So I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. But before I looked it up, I was thinking, to me it sounds like booger. Like it's something.
Well, that's not what I was thinking.
Well, I was thinking booger because in England they call it a bogey. They don't call it a booger. So I'm thinking, okay, bogan. Maybe that's just the Australian word.
They say, what?
They call it a bogey.
In England?
In England they call...
So if you do bad in golf, you get a booger?
No. I'm assuming they still call it a bogey. I really don't know.
So if you do worse, you have a double.
Apparently in England, when you play golf, if you shoot 2 over par, you get 2 boogers.
Sorry, it's hard for me this morning.
Yeah, you're a little out of touch this morning, I think. But yes, so that they put the word bogan, and I had to look it up. And apparently a bogan is like the Australian word for like a backwoods redneck. So like what we would call a hillbilly.
Oh, is a bogan?
Is a bogan. And I thought that was a really funny word. So I think I'm going to start using that word because, generally, we see and perceive hillbillies or rednecks as being like unsophisticated, uneducated type people.
Yes.
So if I start using, if you use the word redneck or hillbilly, they know what that word means. But
who does? People here or in Australia?
No, people here. If you're
okay.
a hillbilly or a redneck and somebody calls you a hillbilly or a redneck, they're smart enough to know what you're calling them. It's derogatory in a roundabout sense. If you call somebody a hillbilly, it's not really a nice thing to be calling somebody. But I'm just going to start using the word bogan because they're not going to have a clue what that means. Maybe they'll pick it up eventually, but oh, look at that group of bogans. Next time I go to West Virginia.
That'll probably get you in more trouble than hillbilly.
Probably. So I thought that was really strange. Musk, stick, lollies, and bogans. 2 things I had to look up because I had no clue what they were.
Interesting.
So
I wonder if we can find a musk stick here. I have to find a pen pal in Australia. I'll send them some red vines and we'll send them.
Oh, that's something we could do. So this is fan interaction for you right here. So any of our Australian fans, you hear the podcast, please contact us if you're interested, and you send us some musk stick lollies, and we'll send you something that's quintessential American, or quintessential Americana, either something of your suggestion, you really want to taste this, or something of our choosing. You just let us know.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I
wouldn't say, because I don't want people to start sending us a bunch of red vines. Red vines are great, but they're not the best candy in the world.
Red vines are terrible. I don't know why you like them so much, but you are correct. They do get better with age, but there has to be some sort of like cliff to that curve.
I don't know. I told you I found a pack I just cleaned out in my food pantry, and I had been saving a pack that I picked up in Hawaii years ago. Nice and hard. I mean, it took a good half hour to eat one of those.
Oh, man.
But you get to enjoy it more.
Lucky you got all your teeth.
Well, yeah, most of them.
Try chewing one of those with false teeth or something.
Oh, have you ever had a mallow cup?
Yeah, of course.
Those are good, too.
Yeah.
I just picked up a box of those.
Yeah.
Those are the only kind. They make peanut butter. Those aren't real mallow cups.
No.
Dark chocolate ones.
No, but what I'm saying is I like marshmallow.
Oh, you like marshmallow?
I like marshmallow, except for those god-awful ones you got from Israel.
No, those were the good ones.
Oh, it was the vegan ones.
The vegan ones were
God.
good.
That was an episode that totally went off the rails, too, the marshmallow tasting.
Yeah. All right, back to Australia.
Because
we're running out of time.
We are. We're already almost a half an hour into this. So
I haven't even gotten to the conspiracy theory yet.
Okay.
Or the flag.
So politics, their medical system, their educational system, the fact that Starbucks failed, really entertaining.
Starbucks should go away anyways.
I hate Starbucks. A lot of Americans hate Starbucks, but the sad thing is that a lot of Americans love Starbucks. And apparently in Australia, it failed for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
One of the biggest of which is they were already, like Europeans, they were already very into their coffee.
Yeah.
So they had little cafes and coffee shops kind of everywhere, and it's a social activity. So people will go and, talk about their day and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, since they are British, of course, and by heritage in general.
Okay.
So they kind of adopted that sort of British tea sort of culture.
Yes.
So they already had it. So when Starbucks came in, Starbucks, I don't like. One of the things that I absolutely despise about the United States, we export the worst things. To the world. Yeah. McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, apparently Starbucks. All these things go places. I want to go, when I go to a foreign country, I want to see the foreign country. I want to experience the people and their culture. I don't want to experience American culture in a foreign country. What's the point of that? So Starbucks, apparently, in typical American fashion, when they went to Australia, they did not cater to the Australians. They just worked in America, it's going to work in Australia. They speak English, it must be the same, right? So they went in and just did like the same stuff they do in the United States, and it was brutally rebuffed by the Australian people. So they apparently just like started opening up coffee houses sort of all over the place.
Yeah.
In southeastern Australia and Western Australia. And then all of a sudden, after the 2008 sort of financial crisis, they lost like 3/4 of their Starbucks locations closed. And hopefully, now that it's another decade later, all of them have closed. And I hope for you Australians, you don't have to deal with Starbucks. I despise Starbucks.
Starbucks is one of those companies I just don't like.
My wife is a patron of Starbucks, but she doesn't drink coffee, only their hot chocolate.
That's just
Which
not
you can't really get in a lot of places. You can't just
hot
walk
chocolate?
into you can't just walk into a lot of places and order a hot chocolate. A lot of places don't have it. Starbucks happens to have it, and they actually do a pretty good job making it. But it's hot chocolate. You can't really jack it up. But they make it with milk as opposed to water, which a lot of places use water.
If you can explain it. So they just put in a Starbucks by my house.
Oh my God, they did?
Like not by my house, but it's on the road out of my neighborhood.
Among the Bogans?
Yes. Yeah, because we're out in the country, folk. We're not considered part of the city. But anyways, I drive by it. There's a McDonald's. There's a 7-Eleven.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it over here. Sorry, go ahead.
There's
McDonald's.
a McDonald's. There's a 7-Eleven, and then they put in a Starbucks, and there's like a Zoo Coffee, which is just, I don't know, it's a coffee place. It has a drive-in window because it was like a bank or something at one point. But I'll drive by there in the morning, and there's people going through the drive-thru. It's like 15, 20 cars deep. Why would you sit there? I don't understand. And the coffee doesn't taste good. Their coffee is not wonderful.
Americans, in a general sense, I'll say probably 30 to 40% of Americans I would put in the lazy/stupid category.
Yeah, I mean, it takes... I don't know about your household, but growing up, I don't drink a lot of coffee now, but my parents do. And they just had the coffee maker that you fill up the night before, and it brews and is ready when you wake up in the morning.
We didn't even drink coffee in our household.
Yeah.
We don't drink coffee in my current household.
No? Not at all?
No, not at all.
Oh, it's Sunday for me.
I drink tea. I drink tea every day. For European in that sense, I guess. But and that kind
tea bags, though.
I know, tea bags. Yes, I use tea bags. Okay, I don't use leaf tea with it. Yes, I know. I got to switch over.
Unless it's Lipton. Lipton doesn't sweep it. They have like a special catcher for it. But anyways.
Yeah, I typically use Lipton. Lipton black tea. I'm a black tea fan. So anyway, that's a good segue into one of the other things that people mentioned is they said electric kettles.
Yes.
They said every household in Australia has an electric kettle in it. And at first I looked at that. I'm like a pot like you'd cook things in, like a crock pot.
You don't have an electric kettle?
No.
Oh, you're missing out.
I need to get one.
Yes, for your tea.
Exactly, for my tea.
What are you doing? How do you make your tea?
Oh, God, it's awful. I'm almost ashamed.
Do you put it in a microwave?
I put it in the microwave.
Do you put the tea bag in the microwave too?
No. I just heat the water in the microwave. But still, I'm ashamed to say that I make my tea.
I mean, you are using bag tea, though, so...
If I'm going to be generic, I might as well just be fully generic.
Yeah, because in fact, if you get a tea kettle,
mm-hmm.
the one we have has a temperature adjuster on it. So then you measure what the temperature is at each of those dots, and then you can brew the water at the correct temperature.
You totally did that, didn't you?
I did.
Did you mark it on the kettle? Did you write the temperature on the little dots?
I know which dot is which. There's a black tea, an herbal tea, and a green tea.
I don't even know what to say right now.
It's the way you should go. But we have like a regular size. It's probably like maybe holds a liter and a half of water, our tea kettle, our water kettle. But I'd like to get a bigger one. MasterChef Junior, they use it all the time. Like when they're making pasta, they heat the water in the kettle, and then they pour it in their pot. They have to preheat the pot, of course.
So a liter for you Americans is roughly a quart.
Yeah, I don't like quarts.
Yeah, no. So it's like a quart and a half. I'm just making the conversion. That's all.
Yeah. Like Nalgene bottles, they're usually like a liter. Except for the one I use, they went and made a weird 650 milliliters. And like, what was it? 22 ounces. But it fits in my bag. See, yeah.
Yeah, I got my Nalgene right here. Yep, it's 1,000 milliliters, which is just over 32 ounces.
Yeah.
So 4 of these.
That's what I used to have.
4 of these is a gallon.
Yes.
Because I know that there's 3.8 liters per gallon.
Yes. Anyways, back to Australia.
So Australia. So we're going to get into a little bit of the Australian politics really quick, and really just their voting. I'm not getting into their politics itself, but their voting is really weird. Well, weird for us.
Yes.
First of all, they invented like the secret ballot form of voting, which is what
was everything else just to put your hand in the air? Oh, ayes, nays. Is that how people used to vote before?
Well, now we go into a voting booth,
yes.
right? And voting is, in a roundabout sense, it's secret.
Yeah, ours isn't.
But it's not. Your name is still attached to that because you're a registered voter, and then whatever you pick, that's what it would be attached to you in somehow. But in Australia, it's totally secret.
When I was a kid, the voting booth was in our school. Is it in your school?
Yes.
And they used to have the old-fashioned ones where you would go in and it was nice and tall and you had to close the curtain behind you.
Yeah.
Now it's just like they put a manila folder up over your paper. This isn't special
it's
at all.
It's not secure at all. No,
I don't feel like I'm getting the good stuff out of my civic duty here.
No.
Anyways, continue.
So
they were the first ones.
They were the first ones to kind of like do secret ballots. So
did they use Chads?
I don't have any idea what they're using. It's probably electronic.
Just throwing stuff at you this morning.
I know. But apparently when it was first brought to the United States, it wasn't referred to as a secret ballot. It was actually referred to as the Australian ballot, which a lot of people around the world refer to it as the Australian ballot because they were the kind of the ones who pioneered the use of using the secret ballot. You have to register to vote. It's obligatory. You don't have a choice.
You have to, wait a minute, you have to register to vote or you have to vote?
Well, first of all, you have to register to vote. Second of all, voting is compulsory. If you do not vote, you will get a fine.
Can you vote like I usually vote, where I'll go in, get my paper, but not punch anything and then hand it in blank? Protest?
I have absolutely no idea.
I wonder if that counts.
Apparently, you have to vote. It's a law, and if you don't, you can get a fine for not doing so. And then they had something else that's...
Everybody?
Yes.
Do you have to like...
Well, I would assume, I don't want to make a blanket statement, say it's every single person, but if you're eligible, you're able-bodied, I think you have to. I don't think you have a choice. So like you and I, we would have to go in and vote unless I was like missing my legs and I couldn't get a ride to the voting booth or something or whatever.
Wow. That's interesting.
So I thought that was really cool. And I'm actually happy to hear that because I wish we had compulsory voting. Oh, and it takes place on a Saturday. How novel.
That's terrible.
On a day that people have off. They can actually go and vote.
I'd rather have the day. Give me my 2 hours to go vote.
No, because then it's always on a weekday. First of all, the kids get kicked out of the schools because our voting locations are generally...
Yeah, they couldn't use more days off.
So it's compulsory. It is preferential, which again I thought was something really weird. Preferential voting is, so anytime you have like a single seat that people are running for, so say it's like, whatever. Some kind of civic position. So if it's one spot that people are going for, if there's more than 2 people on the ballot, you rank them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, I would like Jason as number 1. I would like Rage Monster as number 2. I would like Beard as number 3. So they actually have to like force rank them as to which one they think would be best, so like in which order.
So let's say you vote for me as number 1. But I end up being number 3 when they tally the votes. Do they wipe out your number 1 and give you your number 2 as number 1?
I don't have a clue.
Okay.
I have absolutely no idea.
That was a really long maze I sent you down there. But
yeah, so no, how they tally it, I have no idea. But the fact that it's preferential in nature, I think is really weird. Because in the United States, if there's 2 candidates, Rage Monster and Jason, you get to vote for one. Right. Well, even if there were 3,
you still only
Rage
get to
Monster,
vote for
Jason,
one.
and Beard, you get to pick one person. You don't get to say, I'm a Jason, but if it's not him, I'd rather see Rage Monster.
Yeah, so they should have like 18 people running for president, and you can just...
And apparently, some American expat who's lived in Australia now for like 15 or 20 years sent in like this long Reddit response to one of these questions. He basically went deep into their voting, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but apparently they don't vote for their prime minister. I don't really know how that works, but they don't vote for their prime minister, and the prime minister can like call an election whenever he feels like it. I mean, they have to do it within a certain time
to vote
frame.
On him? That's kind of like how England does it too, isn't it? Or, sorry, UK.
I'm not really up on my world political systems. I mean, I know that the UK is weird the way that they do. I don't want to use the word weird derogatorily.
It's different.
It's different than what we would see as being normal, just because we grew up in a system that, frankly, is broken. I'm not going to say that the U.S. system is good or better. It's certainly not. Yes, but it's very straightforward. It's just like click. Yeah, that's your choice. We don't have direct voting for the president of the United States. This stinking electoral college system.
I like the electoral college.
Oh God, it's the worst.
It's not.
You gotta have direct voting.
Makes it easier.
We're not talking about this. So and apparently just like we have governors for each state.
Yes.
The Australian states and territories kind of have their own governor as well, and they function sort of independently from their federal system, just like our states do. But I think they actually have more lateral mobility to be able to deal with whatever they need to deal with than our states do, because our states are pretty girded by our Constitution as to what they can and can't do. But each state in the United States does have its own Constitution. And that does bring up something really interesting, is several of the comments were specifically about gun control. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the gun debate. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. I do not personally own firearms. I don't feel the need to do so, but I do feel that it is the right of citizens who are deemed not a threat to society. So if you're a felon, you probably shouldn't be walking around with, automatic weapons. But a lot of people don't understand the point behind, this is one of the arguments for the Second Amendment, don't really understand the point behind why the Second Amendment of the Constitution was put into the Constitution. Even Australians, I read an article in an Australian magazine that was basically discussing the differences between Australian and American gun laws. And I saw lots of articles, like U.S. news agencies, USA Today, CNN, all these different places saying, are Australian gun laws right for the United States? ? So they had all these things. But this one particular article that I had read from an Australian magazine basically had said that their belief is that we think that we need to have, that the state needs to be able to protect itself.
Yes.
So that's why they had the well-regulated militia. So from the Australian point of view, they see it as the state protecting itself from whatever. But that's really wasn't the intent. The intent of the Second Amendment was to give the people the power to protect themselves against a tyrannical government, which includes the state government, because there are several levels. So the whole point is so that the American citizens can protect themselves against what we saw as tyranny from, like, King George, for instance, when we were fighting our revolution against England.
Right.
The reason that was put in there was so that didn't happen again. So I'm not saying I 100% agree with the fact that people can walk around with, an entire arsenal of weaponry. I think that's a little strange, but we should have the right and the ability to carry firearms, or to own firearms at the very least. But in Australia, it's really weird.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So we have to cut this topic off because it's going to get into a whole lot more. But anyways, real quick.
Yeah.
But weapons today, if the government decided to, let's say our current president wants to become King Trump instead
Emperor Trump.
Yeah, Emperor. And he decided to turn the military over against it. Says, there's no guns that can fight back against our military now. We wouldn't be able to keep up.
Well, the heavy weaponry now.
Yeah,
because normal citizens can't own things like, 155 howitzers.
Right. Yeah. There's just it's a nice idea that we could revolt back, but we would have a very losing chance.
Think about this. I'll just use this as an example. Think about the native Afghanis, okay? They fought off a world superpower with almost nothing. They fought off the Soviet government for almost 10 years with almost nothing.
Well, yeah. But I have to look into more of that.
Almost every single one of them was carrying a Russian-made AK-47, probably.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They made a lot of improvised things.
Yeah.
But one of the things, this was a little bit of a help, I guess. They were being funded by the CIA from the United States. Wonderful,
Right.
Funding the group that eventually became the Taliban. And we were feeding them Stinger missiles, which are shoulder-launched.
Yeah, that kind of helps.
That kind of helped a little bit, but Really, it was the topography of the area and the tenacity of the population, and that's kind of the same thing that would happen in the United States. I mean, no matter what kind of technology and stuff they have, they would never be able to subdue the population. It just wouldn't happen. As long as we have the ability to fight back in some way, they wouldn't be able to, no matter how many tanks or bombs or planes or whatever, unless they want to nuke their own soil, which they probably wouldn't do.
See, I'm just going to throw this out there, though. Should outlaw guns, but everyone's allowed to have bows and arrows. Still back to that.
Back to the guns and arrows. Everybody is allowed to have a bow and an arrow.
Well, no, but that's what you would have.
I don't think
if you want to defend your home, get yourself a nice giant bow and arrow.
I don't know if you can walk down the street just carrying a bow.
Why
with
not?
A quiver of arrows.
It's not like it's loaded. It's not going to accidentally go off.
But it is. Well, think about it this way. I have a set of brass knuckles.
Yeah.
Right. I got them for defense when I was living in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I used to carry them around with me everywhere I went. It was legal there.
Really?
It's not legal in most U.S. states. The state of Maryland, where we live, has a really weird law.
Yeah.
They're legal to own. Okay.
Right.
They're not legal to carry. So if I leave my property, I cannot have them in my hand.
What about like a shopping bag, a Target bag?
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
Okay. So if I leave my property and I'm holding them in my hand, I could be arrested for brandishing a deadly weapon.
Okay.
Okay. If I were to put them in my pocket, I could be then arrested for concealing a deadly weapon.
Yes.
So really, I can't leave my property with them unless they're in a sealed container. So if I put them in a box to ship them or whatever, and I put the box in my trunk.
So you'd have to rip open the box to get to it. It has to be some kind of security.
Yeah.
I wonder what throwing stars.
I would assume they would fall. Well, it probably depends on, because most throwing stars, they're not sharp. It's just a piece of metal. I mean, you can throw anything. But I imagine if they're super sharp, I don't imagine that the police would look too kindly on you just walking around, juggling them or something.
No, you have them strapped to your vest.
Oh, of course. Naturally.
Your sash or whatever that thing's called.
Yeah, like Chuck Norris or, Steven Seagal or Rambo.
Ninjas.
Yeah, ninjas. Yeah, absolutely. So they have some really odd gun laws, I guess, but they were enacted in 1996. Apparently there was a mass shooting in Tasmania at some park or some tourist attraction, and some crazy bogan went out there with an automatic weapon and shot 35 people. So they decided at that point, it's all right, the government stepped in and says, nope, no more automatic weapons. So they took every automatic and semi-automatic weapon, they bought them back from the populace and destroyed them.
Oh, wow.
So you're allowed to have weapons, but you have to be licensed.
Okay.
You have to go through a safety course, like law. You have to do those things, and all the weapons, regardless. Oh, and you can't do pump action either. So all their shotguns,
they're
going to be breech loaders. Yeah, that's weird to me. How do you go trap shooting with a breech loader? I mean, kind of defeats the purpose. And pistols.
Yeah.
You can own pistols.
Do they have to be like the old kind with the hammer that you cock it back?
I don't know. I
didn't spin the chamber.
I didn't see that. A 6-shooter?
Yes.
6-shooter? I didn't see that. But you cannot use them for self-defense. Only for target shooting. So if you have a pistol in your house and somebody breaks in and you shoot and kill them with your pistol, you can go to jail.
What about an arrow? Probably fine.
An arrow?
Yeah.
That might be a little cold-blooded. If you have enough time to load your bow and shoot and kill somebody with it, they're probably
like Legolas.
They're probably going to say that you could have gotten away with not shooting the person and run.
I don't know.
You take the time to load
the bad
your bow.
guy's coming at you so much that you have time to get out your bow and your arrow.
That's what I mean. If you have the time to do that, you probably had the time to run away.
What if you're confined in your bedroom? You keep it under your bed.
I guess this is such a weird tangent you'd love to go on with that.
Anyways, go on.
Good Lord. So since 1996, their gun laws have been really girded. So they're very different. And apparently that the separate states and territories kind of handle their gun laws a little bit differently. But in an all-around sense, you cannot have any automatic or semi-automatic or pump action weapons of any kind in the country. So hunters, they would have to use bolt action rifles. So I don't know how that works for bush rangers and stuff.
Wow. Maybe that's why things are so deadly in Australia, because you can't There's not enough people hunting.
Everything is deadly in Australia. I knew somebody that did like an around the world trip right after they graduated from college, and they spent a significant amount of time in Australia just because they had the time to do it. So they ended up like living there at like some kind of like youth hostel and worked on a tobacco farm or something, like picking tobacco. But she had made the comment, she's like, the people she was with, she was there for like a month, that people told her, it's like, pretty much everything here can kill you. Spiders, snakes, insects that are poisonous, like all this stuff. So she left Australia and ended up going to New Zealand. And she said it was so weird because in Australia, seemingly everything can kill you. Go to New Zealand, nothing can kill you.
Well, that's probably why. You just said it in the beginning. That they're on their own continent. Different continent.
They are.
The Australian continent is deadly. The other one is not.
The odd thing about New Zealand, the country of New Zealand, it's not very populated. I know that. But it's so far out in the middle of nowhere, I don't think that most people even know that it's there.
It's not that far off the coast, is it?
It's really far. It's at least 1,000 nautical miles. At least. It's probably farther than that.
Really?
Yeah. It's a long way.
What's nautical miles into regular miles?
A nautical mile is like 7,000 feet.
That doesn't help me.
A regular mile is 5,280 feet.
Oh. So it's a little bit further.
Yeah.
Is it really that far?
Yeah. Look it up. Oh, that's from Central Australia.
Well, it's still 1,000 kilometers. 2,000. Let's just cut it in half. I don't know what that is in nautical miles. I'm not British like you.
It's not British.
Anyways, continue.
So nothing in New Zealand can kill you, apparently.
So what, wait a minute. So what continent is New Zealand on?
I don't think it's on one. I think it's just like, the
Has
Hawaiian
to be
Islands.
On one.
Well, it's not considered part of Australia. It could be part of Antarctica. It's close. Oceania. That's what it is. It's like all those weird island nations. I don't want to say weird.
Isn't Oceania also Australia?
No.
So you're telling me we have 8 continents?
See,
use geography, guys.
A
just can't make a decision.
A continent denotes land.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like the whole Ring of Fire situation. So you got like the Mariana Islands. You got Hawaiian Islands. Like all these places are all part of sort of a single, like the Pacific Plate.
Yeah.
So
you're upsetting our Australian fans because you're talking about New Zealand. This is supposed to be Australia, not New Zealand.
Fine.
But anyways,
we're not talking about that anymore.
New Zealand flag.
New Zealand flag or the Australian flag?
New Zealand flag.
Okay.
They just had a referendum to change their flag. Did you hear about this?
No. Why are we talking about New Zealand? You're upsetting our
it's
Australian
a segue,
fans.
Because it's getting there. Patience there, grasshopper. So New Zealand just had a referendum to change their flag. They had people submit options of what they want the flag to be, and then they voted on it as a country, and they voted on to keep the same flag that they always had. It's a little bit different, but essentially the same. But Australia has continuing referendums to change their flag because when their flag that they have now is part of the British Empire flag, so it has
has a Union Jack in it.
Yeah. But they continue to choose to not change their flag. I was just surprised. Like, why would you? And
it's funny because the Australian flag and the New Zealand flag are actually pretty close.
Yeah. Do you think they'd want to be something, now that they're not as close to the UK, I think they might want to have something a little bit separate. But then again, like us Americans, we don't want to allow Puerto Rico or the DC to be a state because it's going to throw off our stars.
That's not why.
Where are you going to put those 2 extra stars? That's why they wanted to buy Greenland, because you can put Greenland and Guam, and you can make a whole nother row.
Well, if we did, we would just put them all back in a circle again.
Yeah, if you've seen the designs for that, it doesn't look so good.
No, looks terrible.
Anyways, back to your list.
Back to my list.
I had to throw that one in there.
So they mentioned decent minimum wage. They mentioned medical. So the medical system is much like a lot of European countries.
We've argued about minimum wage before.
Yeah. Well, their minimum wage, surprisingly, isn't all that great.
It's not that decent?
It's okay. It's $17.50, I think, roughly.
Dollars?
$17.50 Australian dollars.
What's an Australian dollar to an American dollar?
It's like 1.45 or something. So it's like 12 US dollars, basically. So that's
a little bit better.
That's a little bit better than ours, but not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it. It really depends also on your living situation. Well, also they, like most Australians live in a place where it doesn't get. Yes, they have ski areas. Yes, there are parts of Australia that get snow, but in a general sense, it's really like the Gold Coast area, Perth. It does get cold, but I don't think the cost of living is nearly as expensive as it is to live in most of the parts of the United States.
Yeah.
Just based on geography. It's probably a little bit better because they're not paying, $400 a month to heat their house in the wintertime.
Yeah, a majority of the people live along the coast, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Not a lot in the center. It's a lot of desert, right?
No, there's nothing in the middle of the country. I don't even want to touch on Aboriginal culture, although they have been, the continent has been populated for at least the last 50,000 years. Now I think it actually might be much, much earlier than that. So kudos to Australian Aborigines for toughing it out for so long. Their healthcare system is sort of like the United Kingdom, where I think I couldn't dig too deep into it. I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time for the medical part, but they have a nationalized medical system, but apparently it's still subsidized by the individual. So I think you can get like individual insurance plans, but they're not terribly expensive.
Yeah.
To kind of cover other things. But I think college education is free, and it's actually a pretty good system, I guess. So it's like Germany in that regard. You can get into a university. You don't have to pay to go there. And it's funny because the few people that mentioned it called it tertiary education. We would never call it that.
Yeah.
We call it primary school. We call it secondary school when you're talking about high school. We don't call it tertiary school when you go to college. We say you're going to college or you go higher education, right? So they were referring to it as tertiary education.
If it's provided, then it's just...
Yeah. So you don't have to, but you can.
Yeah.
Tipping. That's another weird thing.
Yeah, I don't like U.S. tipping.
I don't like U.S. tipping because you don't have to. You never have to tip in the United States, but you're looked at very poorly if you don't. If
whoever's providing the service expects a tip.
Yes.
That's when it's bad because they're going to do the bad thing that happens when you don't tip.
I couldn't believe this. I went to an AutoZone here in the United States, an auto parts store, for those who don't know what that is. I had to get a new battery for my wife's car. So I drove the car there, needed a new battery. The guy came out, looked at it, and says, okay, we have one of those in stock. I went in, paid for the battery. He says, do you need me to install it? And I said, either that or you got to give me the tools because I can't leave.
Yeah.
Because now the car's off and the battery was DED. It was just, after 6 years, it was just done for. It needed to be replaced. So the car wouldn't have started. I would have needed a jump start anyway. It's like, yeah. So that's something that they will do free of charge. They will come out and they will change if it's easy to do, they will come out and they'll change your battery or whatever.
Right.
So the guy comes out and he changes the battery. And this one is actually really simple. It's right in the front right of the engine compartment. Easy to get to. 2 bolts, pops off. Easy, right?
Yeah.
Takes him 3 minutes.
Right.
Takes it off, puts a new one in, and then he says, well, I'm not saying you should, but right now would be a good time to tip me.
What?
Exactly. And I just kind of like, okay. And I literally had to go back because my wife was in the car, and I said, hey, do you have any cash on you? Because I don't usually carry a lot of cash with me. And she's like, yeah, I think so. And I think we had like $3.
I would have given like the buck. Maybe. That's not something you tip for.
No, exactly. They're supposed to do that. And I was actually afterwards, I was kind of angry.
Yeah, I would be too.
So I wasn't really happy about that. But getting back to Australia.
Now you've upset me. I was in a jolly mood. Now, cranky.
So in Australia, they don't tip. It's something you can do if you would like to, but no one expects it. And it's not like an obligation for you to do.
Yeah.
But I will say, like all this stuff that they have that's free, this free healthcare and free college education and stuff, they also pay a minimum 45% tax rate, which Americans would freak out with tax rates that high.
Well, do they have like sales tax and stuff too, or is it just like...
States do not. That was the interesting thing too. States in Australia do not tax. Like here, we pay a federal tax and we pay a state tax.
Yeah.
All of that amounts to roughly 30% or less.
Yeah.
Depending on what your income level is. So in the United States, your tax base is based on your income level. So like you and I probably pay like an 18% federal tax based on our incomes. But there are people who pay like a 24% federal tax based on their incomes. There's people who pay a 15% tax, and there are people who pay 0% tax, and that's based on your income level. So in Australia, I think it's like straight up 45%, but I think that there's like percentages like added onto that for things like the Medicare system. It's like an automatic 2%. So if you make $100, $2 goes to Medicare. But we kind of have that in the States. But when we add everything up, for us, it's going to be 30% or less, and that's federal, state, and any other Social Security, Medicare, taxes, all that stuff. This is way less than 30%. So they're paying at least 50% more in taxes than we are. But that would really irritate people in the U.S. Constantly, it's a struggle between political parties about how things are going to get paid for, and how the taxes will change based on those things. Are taxes going to go up? Are taxes going to go down? So on and so on and so on.
All right, we're getting long here.
I know.
I'm surprised you even have a notebook. You actually did research this time. But do you have anything exciting you need to touch on? There's a lot of stuff we didn't get to.
Oh, there was so much stuff.
All the stuff I prepared on, we didn't even touch on. I got to squeeze in the flag thing there. Well, we didn't get to talk about uranium or opal mines.
Yeah, opal mines. Totally crazy.
Giant holes in the ground.
It's just giant holes in the ground. Well, I think that they do have what would be considered like pit mines, where it's like a giant pit. But there are places where it's literally just a hole.
Yeah, people they just need a job and they go out and dig a hole. And it's
like, a hole that's like 5-10 feet across, and they just dig down given
deep
distance. And it can be a long way.
Yeah.
And then they don't even like gate it off. They just leave a giant hole in the desert.
I got my opal out.
You could just be walking through the desert and fall down a giant hole.
Yeah. Never seen again.
That would be so awful if you were lost in the outback and you were walking at night because it's cooler and not walking during the day, and then in the middle of the night you fell down a giant hole and died.
Yeah. If the fall didn't kill you, the starvation would.
Yeah, that's terrible. I don't want to.
Great Coral Reef, Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, Sydney Opera House, which, is like the iconic image of Australia that all Americans know. The Great Coral Reef is something that a vast majority of Americans would be at least familiar with the term, whether they knew where it was or not.
Maybe we'll have to do another episode.
We could. So for our Australian fans, and I will put this back out on a couple of the subreddits that I pinged for questions. Any of our Australian fans, if you think there are things we should talk about that we didn't touch on, we could definitely do another Australian episode, because this was kind of fun. I got to dig into a country that I didn't know as much about as I thought I did. But I certainly knew, I knew a lot about Australia going into this than most Americans would know.
We'll have to just do another episode, because we didn't even touch on the Australian rules football.
Oh, no. We didn't talk about Aussie rules football. My favorite sport.
That would go on for a while, though.
That would go on for a little bit.
I mean, we did a section on Formula One, so we'll have to do.
We got to find an Australian here to interview, like for another episode of.
All right. So if you're in the tri-state area.
Tri-state area? What is this?
Reach out to us and we'll see if we can squeeze you in.
Yes, if
special guest.
I would say the Tri-Cities area, so Baltimore, Washington.
They might like to drive. It's a chance to be famous.
Chance to be famous. If you want to be famous, don't be on our show.
Anyways, I have one more thing before we wrap up for the day. So this is episode 27.
Yes.
Right. So you can cut this out if you don't agree with it, because I think I mentioned it before, but if not. Anyways, we're coming up on 1 year of shows.
Oh, heck
coming soon.
Yeah.
And one that we're trying to do something special. So one of the things that we're thinking about is when we have special guests, we have the 10 rapid questions. So if our listeners have questions they want us to answer, that would be fun to do on our special episode.
Yeah.
I don't even know what episode that's going to be yet.
No, we don't. Just because we have a guest episode coming up. We have been planning for that.
Yeah. That'll be
3 episodes from this. So we really only have less than 6 weeks before that has to be recorded. We'll have to really kind of think about how we're going to handle that. But I would love to do that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
maybe we'll revisit some of the old ones. Maybe we'll take it not 10 rapid questions. It'll be
just
slower questions. Yeah.
But, so, Conversational Chaos fans, please email us. That's conversationalchaos@gmail.com.
Put in the subject 10 questions.
Yeah, put 10 questions in the subject line.
It doesn't have to be 10 questions, though.
Yeah.
I'll just make it questions.
You're confusing the listeners now.
Just questions.
Just
to make
questions.
it simpler.
Okay, we'll make it
That way we
simpler.
can filter out the whole from all the massive fan mail we get.
We do get communications. Anyway.
All right.
I think that's going to tear it, man. We're pushing the envelope, and I got to edit this stuff. So,
yeah.
I think that's going to do it for today. Chaos fans, please reach out to us, conversationalchaos@gmail.com. Any of our other communication, that's all in the show notes, so you can hit us up on Instagram or Twitter if you'd like. Jason?
I've got nothing else.
All right. So this is the Rage Monster and Jason signing off.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.